The phone was slick with Elena's blood. Her left arm hung limp, twisted at an angle that shouldn't exist, the bone grinding against shattered fragments with every shallow breath she took. But the physical agony was a whisper compared to the primal terror clawing at her throat. She was hidden behind crates in the storage closet, the smell of stale flour mixing with copper. Charles's boots echoed closer in the hallway, his voice a roar about teaching disobedient help a permanent lesson. And pressed between her trembling fingers was a black silk card she had carried for 3 months. A card from the man they called the Silent Dragon. Luang Canh, the Triad boss who could erase entire lives with a single word. Her only way out. Before we continue Elena's story, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with someone who loves intense storytelling. Now, back to Elena, hiding in the dark, about to make the call that would ignite a war. 3 months ago, Elena was still just another waitress at Marchand's, one of the most exclusive fine dining establishments in the city. That evening had started like any other. She wore her crisp white blouse and black vest, her dark curls pulled into a tight bun, the long sleeves carefully concealing the finger-shaped bruises that decorated her forearms. Charles had grabbed her the morning before because she forgot to restock the reserve wine cellar fast enough. 5 years. 5 years she had endured that nightmare. 5 years she had learned how to hide the marks, how to keep her eyes down when she wanted to scream, how to tell the other girls that she was just clumsy when they noticed. That night, the floor manager's voice cut through the kitchen chatter with unusual tension. There was a VIP reservation. Private Dining Room 3, the most secluded section of the restaurant. Elena was chosen to serve because she was the most experienced server on the evening rotation. She balanced the bottle of vintage Bordeaux on a silver tray and pushed through the heavy mahogany doors, and her breath caught when she saw the man seated at the head of the table. He was striking in a way that made the air feel thinner. Dark hair swept back from a face of sharp angles and controlled power. His eyes were black, fathomless, and impossibly still, like the surface of deep water before a storm. Around him sat 6 men in immaculate dark suits, their postures relaxed but their eyes constantly moving, cataloging every entrance, every shadow. This was Luang Canh, the Silent Dragon, and Elena had just walked into his world. Before we begin, a question for you. Would you make the call? If you had one chance to escape hell but it meant trusting the most dangerous man alive, would you do it? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know if your team call him or team handle it yourself. Let's see where you all stand. My fingers are shaking so hard I can barely grip the phone. Blood, my blood, smears across the screen as I try to unlock it. My left arm, God, I can't even look at it. The bone is sticking out. The bone. Charles's footsteps are getting closer. I can hear him overturning tables in the hallway, his voice a thunder of rage. Elena, you think you can hide from me? I own you. The storage closet is so dark I can barely see, but I don't need light. My fingers know this card by heart. Black silk, a dragon embossed in gold, and a number I memorized the day he gave it to me. The door handle rattles. I dial. 1 ring. 2 rings. My vision blurs from the pain. Then his voice, low, calm, lethal. Speak. Come pick me up. My voice cracks. Please, he's going to kill me. The door explodes inward. Charles's silhouette fills the frame, backlit by fluorescent light. I'm already on my way, Luang says. And the line goes dead. Charles lunges. 3 months ago, I didn't know men like Luang Canh existed outside of movies. It was a Friday night, and Marchand's was buzzing with the kind of wealth that makes you feel invisible. I was on my 8th hour, my feet screaming, when Charles cornered me by the wine cellar. His breath reeked of scotch. You're getting sloppy, Elena, he hissed, his hand clamping around my wrist right over the bruises from Tuesday. Smile more. The guests are complaining you look miserable. I am miserable, I wanted to scream. But I nodded instead. Yes, Mr. Mendoza. He squeezed harder, his thumb digging into bone. Good girl. When he finally released me, I had 10 minutes to fix my makeup before serving the VIP room. Private dining room 3 was silent when I entered. 6 men in black suits sat like statues, but it was the man at the head of the table who made my heart stutter. Luang Canh. Everyone in the restaurant knew his name. The Silent Dragon. The man who owned half the city's underground and never raised his voice to do it. He was terrifying, not because he was loud or violent, but because of how still he was, like a blade waiting to be drawn. "Your wine, sir," I managed, my voice barely steady. As I poured, Charles barged in, all fake smiles and oily charm. "Mr. Canh, an honor to have you. Leave." Wang didn't even look at him. His eyes were on me, on the tremor in my hands, on the way I flinched when Charles stepped too close. Charles's smile faltered. "Of course. Elena, don't keep our guest waiting." The door clicked shut. I was alone with 6 dangerous men, and somehow I never felt safer. "What is your name?" Luang asked softly. "Elena Rodriguez, sir." "Elena." He said it like he was memorizing it. Then he did something that changed everything. He reached into his jacket and placed a black silk card on the table. "When you are ready to leave, call this number." My throat tightened. I don't understand." "Yes, you do." His black eyes held mine. "One call. I will come." I took the card with shaking hands, and he gave the smallest nod. 3 months. I carried that card for 3 months, too terrified to use it. Until tonight. "You stupid, worthless." The steel prep table rushed up to meet me, and then there was a sound I'll never forget. A wet crack, like a branch snapping. My scream tore out of me before I could stop it. My arm. Oh God, my arm was wrong. Bent where it shouldn't bend. White bone piercing through skin. It started because table 12's entrees were delayed. Just 5 minutes. But Charles had been drinking since lunch, and when he drinks, the monster comes out. He'd grabbed me in the kitchen, slammed me against the walk-in freezer. "Do you have any idea how much that table spends here? Do you?" "I'm sorry," I gasped, but sorry was never enough. He dragged me to the prep station and slammed my arm down. Once. Twice. The 3rd time, I heard it break. The kitchen staff froze. No one moved. No one ever moved. Charles released me, breathing hard, his face red. "Clean yourself up. You're going back out there." I ran. Pain exploded with every step, but I ran. The storage closet. The only door with a lock. I collapsed behind the flour crates, my vision swimming. Blood dripped onto the concrete floor, my blood. The bone was sticking out of my forearm, white and obscene. Charles was screaming my name in the hallway. Getting closer. My right hand, my good hand, dove into my shoe. The card was there, tucked against my insole, exactly where I'd kept it for 93 days. I dialed with bloody fingers. "Come pick me up," I whispered when he answered. "Please, he's going to kill me." "I'm already on my way." The door exploded inward. Charles filled the doorway, his eyes wild. "Thought you could hide?" I pressed myself against the wall, cradling my destroyed arm. He stepped inside. Then we both heard it. Through the walls. Through the chaos of the dinner rush. Tires screeching. Car doors slamming. Shouting. Charles's face went white. "What did you do?" he whispered. I smiled through my tears. "I called someone scarier than you." "Quick break. Let's talk. Things are about to get intense." But before we continue, do you think Luang will just rescue Elena, or is he about to make an example of Charles? Drop your predictions below, hit that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.
T.
The restaurant went silent. Not the polite quiet of fine dining, the shocked, breath-held silence of people who know something terrible is about to happen. I heard it through the storage room walls. The click of expensive shoes on marble. Multiple footsteps, moving with military precision. And then a voice I recognized. Cold, calm, absolute. Where is she? Luang Canh. Charles's face drained of color. Stay here, he hissed at me, then bolted out, slamming the door behind him. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. The pain in my arm was a living thing, pulsing with my heartbeat. I heard shouting, furniture scraping. Then, the door opened. But it wasn't Charles. Luang Canh stood in the doorway, backlit by the kitchen lights, 6 men in black suits flanking him. He was exactly as I remembered, sharp suit, sharper eyes. But now those eyes were on me, taking in my shattered arm, the blood, the way I was curled against the wall like a broken doll. Something flickered across his face. Something terrifying. Take her to the car, he said quietly to one of his men. Be gentle. Sir, the man began. Gentle. It wasn't a request. 2 of them approached slowly, like I was something fragile. One of them, a younger guy with kind eyes, carefully scooped me up. I whimpered when my arm shifted. I've got you, he murmured. Almost there. They carried me through the kitchen. The entire staff was pressed against the walls, eyes wide. Through the dining room doors, I could see the guests, dozens of Manhattan's elite, frozen in their seats. And there, in the center of the restaurant, was Charles. On his knees. Luang stood over him, hands in his pockets, expression utterly neutral. But the air around him vibrated with violence. This woman, Luang said, his voice carrying through the silent room, called me for protection. From you. Charles was trembling. Mr. Canh, please, there's been a misunderstanding. Show them your arm, Elena. The man carrying me angled me toward the dining room. I didn't want to look, but I lifted my destroyed arm. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's fork clattered to the floor. Luang crouched in front of Charles, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow reached every corner of the room. You put your hands on what is now mine. Do you understand what that means? Charles was crying now. I'll pay whatever you want. You'll pay with everything. Luang stood, brushing invisible dust from his jacket. Your restaurant, your reputation, your freedom, and if you ever speak her name again. He leaned down one last time. I'll take your hands. He straightened and nodded to his men. Call the police. Tell them we have a man who needs to confess to multiple counts of assault and human trafficking. Trafficking. Charles gasped. We've been watching you for 3 months, Mr. Mendoza. Since the night I met Elena. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? Luang's smile was a razor. You've been selling your employees' information to debt collectors, keeping their passports, threatening their families. Charles collapsed forward, sobbing. Luang walked past him without a second glance and followed us to the exit. The last thing I saw before we stepped outside was the restaurant full of frozen, horrified faces. And Charles Mendoza, destroyed. The night air hit my face as they loaded me into a black SUV. Luang slid in beside me, and the door closed on the chaos behind us. Hospital, he told the driver. Then, to me, his voice softer than I'd ever imagined possible. You're safe now. I wanted to thank him, to ask him why, to understand how a monster saved me from a monster. But darkness was creeping in at the edges, and all I could do was whisper. You came. I promised I would. His hand, surprisingly gentle, brushed the hair from my face. Sleep, Elena. When you wake up, everything will be different. The car pulled away from Marchand's, and through the tinted windows, I watched Charles being led away in handcuffs. Everything was different. Everything had just begun. I woke up in heaven. Or hell. I couldn't tell which. The ceiling was glass, showing a sky full of stars. The bed beneath me felt like a cloud. My arm, my God, my arm was in a pristine white cast, elevated on silk pillows. No pain. Whatever they'd given me was good. Then reality crashed back. Where was I? I sat up too fast and the room spun. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a city sprawled below, lights twinkling like fallen stars. This wasn't a hospital. This was a penthouse. And judging by the view, it was at the top of the world. You shouldn't move yet. I nearly screamed. Luang stood in the doorway, changed out of his suit into dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He held a tray, tea, soup, pills. Where am I? My voice cracked. My home. He approached slowly, like I was a wounded animal. The surgeon set your arm 3 hours ago. You'll heal completely, but you need rest. He set the tray on the nightstand, and I flinched when his hand came near. Old instincts. Expect the hit. Brace for the grab. Luang froze. His jaw tightened, but he pulled back immediately, giving me space. I'm not him, he said quietly. Then what are you? The words escaped before I could stop them. Why am I here? What do you want from me? He could have been angry. Charles would have backhanded me for questioning him. But Luang just sat in the chair across from the bed, deliberately keeping distance between us. You called me for help. I'm giving it. His dark eyes met mine. No conditions. No debt. No expectations. I laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Men like you don't do anything for free. Men like me do what we choose. He poured tea with hands that could probably kill without effort, yet moved with strange gentleness. And I choose to protect you. That's all. Why? Because I saw you that night. The fear in your eyes when he walked by. The bruises you tried to hide. His voice went cold. Because men like Charles Mendoza are a disease, and I enjoy being the cure. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But 5 years with Charles taught me that powerful men only gave to take. How long do I have to stay here? Until you want to leave. He stood, moving toward the door. This floor is yours. My men are outside if you need anything. Rest, Elena. He was almost gone when I whispered, Thank you. Luang paused, his back to me. You don't owe me gratitude. You owe yourself freedom. Sleep. The door closed softly. I stared at the ceiling, my heart hammering. I was in a cage again. But this one had silk sheets and a man who asked permission to get close. Maybe that was more terrifying than Charles's fists. 3 days in the penthouse, and I still jumped every time someone knocked. But Luang kept his distance. He'd check on me twice a day, always announced, always asking before entering. His men, especially the kind-eyed one named James, treated me like I was made of porcelain. It was strange, being treated like a person instead of property. On the 4th morning, Luang knocked at dawn. Come in, I called, sitting up in bed. He entered with another man, older, gray-haired, carrying a leather folder. Luang's expression was granite. Elena, this is Marcus Chun, my lead investigator. He's found something about Charles you need to hear. My stomach dropped. What did he do? Marcus sat in the chair, opening the folder. His voice was clinical, but his eyes were sympathetic. We've been building a case against Mendoza for 3 months. What we've uncovered goes far beyond workplace abuse. He slid photos across the bed. Documents. Spreadsheets. Charles has been running an identity trafficking operation through the restaurant. Every employee's personal information, social security numbers, addresses, family contacts, he's been selling them to debt collection agencies. Foreign workers especially. I felt sick. Maria? Sophia, all the girls. 17 women total. Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd collect their documents for payroll, then sell their identities to predatory lenders. When the women couldn't pay the false debts, he'd use it as leverage. Threaten deportation. Threaten their families. Oh my God. Tears burned my eyes. I thought I was the only one. I thought. You were the visible victim, Luang said softly, crouching beside the bed so we were eye level. But he was destroying all of them quietly, systematically. Why didn't anyone report him? Fear. Marcus closed the folder. Fear of losing work permits. Fear of retaliation. Fear no one would believe them over a successful businessman. I looked at Luang. You said you've been investigating for 3 months, since the night we met. The moment I saw the marks on your wrist, I knew he was dangerous. I couldn't leave until I understood the full scope.
His eyes held mine.
I won't apologize for watching. It's what saved 16 other women. What happens now?
Now.
Wang's smile was razor-sharp. Now we finish him. The police have the evidence. The media has the story. By tomorrow, Charles Mendoza won't just be in prison. He'll be infamous. And the women? Protected. I've arranged legal representation for all of them. Green cards for those who need them. Jobs at establishments I personally vet.
He stood.
No one else gets hurt by him. I stared at this man, this criminal, this Triad boss, who'd done more for strangers than any law could. Why? I whispered. Why go this far? Wang paused at the door. Because someone should have stopped him years ago. I just happened to be someone who could. After they left, I cried. Not from pain, but from the weight lifting off my chest. 17 women. He'd saved 17 women. Including me. Let's discuss this. Okay, real talk, is Luang a hero, or just a different kind of dangerous? Some of you are probably thinking he's perfect, while others are thinking he's still a criminal. Where do you stand? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button, and subscribe because Chapter 6 is about to show you a side of Elena you haven't seen yet. I don't understand why I'm here. I stood in a private shooting range beneath the city, staring at the gun on the table in front of me like it might bite. Wang stood beside me, patient as ever. Because fear is a cage, he said simply. And I'm teaching you to pick the lock. I'm not a killer.
No.
But you're not a victim either. He picked up the weapon, some sleek black thing I didn't know the name of. This isn't about violence, Elena. It's about knowing you could defend yourself. That changes everything. I thought about running. But where would I go? Back to my studio apartment where Charles knew the address? Back to a life of hiding? Fine. I reached for the gun. 2 hours later, I'd hit the target more times than I'd missed. My arm still ached from the cast being removed last week, but the weight of the gun felt good, solid,
real.
Better, Luang said, a hint of approval in his voice. You're a fast learner. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He took the gun, clearing it with practiced efficiency. But terror? That's what Charles wanted you to feel. There's a difference. From the range, he took me to a place I'd never been, a high-end tailor in a building with no sign. Mr. Canh, the elderly tailor, greeted him like royalty. And this must be Miss Rodriguez. Elena needs a new wardrobe, Luang said. Everything. I looked down at my borrowed clothes, too big, too plain. I can't afford. This isn't a gift. It's an investment. Luang's eyes met mine in the mirror as the tailor began measuring. You're going to testify against Charles in 2 months. When you walk into that courtroom, I want him to see that he didn't break you. That you became something he never could. Powerful. The tailor worked in silence, pinning fabric, making notes. Luang watched from a leather chair, his gaze unreadable. Why are you doing all this? I asked quietly. The protection, the training, the clothes. What's your endgame? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I grew up watching powerful men destroy everyone around them. My father was one of them. By the time I was old enough to stop him, it was too late. His voice held old pain. I can't change the past, but I can make sure men like Charles don't win. And me? What am I in all this? You? He stood, approaching until we were both reflected in the mirror. Him in his dark suit, me in half-pinned silk. You're proof that surviving isn't enough. That becoming who you were meant to be is the real victory. The tailor stepped back and I saw it. In the mirror, in the expensive fabric, in the way I stood straighter now. I wasn't the terrified waitress anymore. When you face him in court, Luang said softly, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you're not asking for justice. You're taking it. I looked at my reflection, really looked. For the first time in 5 years, I recognized the woman staring back. Okay, I whispered. Teach me to be a queen. Wang's smile was sharp and proud. Already done. You just needed to see it yourself. I should have known Charles wouldn't go quietly. 6 weeks of peace. 6 weeks of healing, training, becoming someone new. I'd started to believe I was safe. That was my mistake. It happened outside the physical therapist's office. James had walked me in, but I insisted I could handle the 3-minute wait in the lobby alone. I wanted to prove I wasn't afraid anymore.
Stupid.
So stupid. The van pulled up so fast, I barely registered it. 2 men, military-trained, cold-eyed, grabbed me before I could scream. A hand clamped over my mouth. A needle bit into my neck. Boss wants his property back. One of them growled. The world tilted. I tried to fight, tried to remember everything Luang taught me, but the drug was already pulling me under. The last thing I heard was James shouting my name. Then darkness. I woke to the smell of mildew and Charles's cologne. My hands were zip-tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. My head pounded from whatever they'd injected. And there he was, Charles Mendoza, looking nothing like the polished businessman I'd feared for 5 years. He was unshaven, wild-eyed, wearing a wrinkled suit. Desperate. Elena. He smiled and my stomach turned. Did you really think you could destroy me and walk away? You destroyed yourself. My voice was hoarse but steady. I just made sure everyone knew. His hand cracked across my face. Old move. Old terror. But something was different this time. I didn't crumble. You're out on bail, I said, tasting blood. You kidnapped me. That's another 20 years, you idiot. Only if they find you. He crouched down, his breath hot on my face. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to recant your testimony. Say you lied. That your Triad boyfriend put you up to it.
No.
He hit me again. Harder.
Yes.
Or I'll make sure your mother in Phoenix gets a very unfriendly visit. Fear spiked through me. Not for myself, but for Mama. Charles saw it and grinned. There's my good girl. Still so easy to break. But then I remembered. The weight of a gun in my hand. Luang's voice. You're not begging for justice. You're taking it. You know what your problem is, Charles? I met his eyes. You taught me to survive your worst. And then someone taught me to fight back. His smile faltered. Outside, tires screeched. Shouting erupted.
Gunfire.
Charles's face went white. What did you? The warehouse door exploded inward. I'd never seen Luang Canh lose control. Until now. He came through that door like a storm made flesh. 6 men flanking him, weapons drawn, his face a mask of cold fury. But his eyes, God, his eyes found mine across the warehouse, and something in them made my breath catch. Relief. Rage.
Fear.
Let her go. His voice was quiet.
Deadly. Now.
Charles yanked me up, pressing a knife to my throat. His hands shook. Stay back. I'll kill her. I swear to God. You won't. I drove my elbow back into his ribs, just like Luang taught me. Charles gasped, the knife clattering away. I spun and kicked him in the knee. He went down hard. That's for my arm, I hissed. Charles's 2 mercenaries raised their guns, but Luang's men were faster.
3 shots.
Both men dropped, screaming, clutching their legs. Non-lethal.
Precise.
Luang crossed the space between us in seconds. His hands cupped my face, checking for damage, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the violence around us. Did he hurt you? Nothing I couldn't handle. My voice shook despite my words. Something flickered in his expression, pride, maybe, before he turned to Charles, who was crawling backward, whimpering. You violated your bail. Kidnapped a federal witness. Hired armed mercenaries. Luang's voice dropped to a whisper. You're done. Please, Charles sobbed. I'll disappear. You'll never. You threatened her mother. Luang crouched down, and I saw the monster beneath the man. There is nowhere on this earth you can hide from me now. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. We called them 2 minutes after you were taken, James said, appearing at my side. Boss didn't even wait for backup. Just went to war. I looked at Luang, who was zip-tying Charles's hands with brutal efficiency. The silent dragon. The man who supposedly never broke cover, never made noise. He'd burned his entire operation to the ground to find me. Why? I whispered. Luang heard me somehow. He stood, leaving Charles in a heap, and approached. His hand, still steady despite everything, brushed my cheek where Charles had hit me. Because some things are worth the cost. His thumb traced my bruised skin. You're worth it. Before I could respond, police flooded in. Charles was dragged away screaming about conspiracies and frame jobs. The mercenaries were loaded into ambulances. And Luang stood beside me while I gave my statement, his presence a wall between me and the chaos. It's over, he said softly. I looked at Charles being shoved into a police car, broken and powerless. Yeah, I breathed. It really is. Final thoughts before we finish. We're almost at the end, and I need to know, do you think Elena and Luang should end up together, or is that crossing a line? Is it a trauma bond or a real connection? This is about to get controversial, so drop your take in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and let's see how this ends. 1 year later, I stood in front of my restaurant, and still couldn't believe it was real. Sanctuary was etched in gold above the door. Not fancy, just true. Inside, 17 women worked in safety. Fair wages, health insurance, a zero-tolerance policy for abuse. Some were from marchands. Others I'd found through the foundation Luang helped me establish. Every single one had a story, like mine. But here they were safe. You're staring again. Luang's voice came from behind me. I turned. He looked different in the daylight, less like a crime lord, more like a man. We'd spent the year dismantling his organization's darker operations. Trafficking, extortion, the things that made people like Charles possible. It wasn't perfect. He wasn't a saint, but he was trying. We both were. I'm allowed to stare. It's mine. I smiled. Well, ours. Yours, he corrected, but his lips twitched. I'm just an investor. An investor who sits at table 7 every Friday night, scaring away anyone who looks at the staff wrong. Someone has to. He stepped closer, and I didn't flinch anymore. Hadn't in months. Besides, the chef makes excellent dumplings. The chef is Sophia. You saved her from deportation. You saved her. I just made some calls. His hand found mine, calloused, dangerous, gentle. You did this, Elena. All of it. Charles was in maximum security, serving 30 years. His empire was ash. And the women he'd broken? We were rebuilding. Not as victims. As survivors. As warriors. Come inside, I said. Dinner service starts soon. We walked through the door together, him in his dark suit, me in chef whites. The staff looked up and smiled. Not with fear. With respect. Maria waved from the bar. James, who now ran security for Sanctuary, nodded from his post. Sophia brought us tea without being asked. Luang took his usual table in the corner. Not hiding anymore. Just present. You know people are going to talk, I said, sitting across from him. The restaurateur and the reformed crime boss. Let them talk. His dark eyes held mine. I spent my life in the shadows. You brought me into the light. I'm not going back. Even if it costs you? Elena. He leaned forward. You already cost me everything I was. And gave me everything I should have been. That's not a debt, it's a gift. My throat tightened. I don't know if I can. I'm not asking for anything. His hand covered mine. I'm just grateful to have a seat at your table. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, women laughed without fear. And at table 7, a monster learned to be a man, and a victim learned to be a queen. One condition, I said finally. Anything. The dumplings stay on the menu. Sophia's recipe. Always. Luang's rare smile appeared. Genuine, warm, free. Deal. I raised my teacup. To new empires. He touched his cup to mine. to the only empire that matters. Yours. So, what did you think? That's Elena's story. From a storage closet with a broken arm to a restaurant empire with a reformed crime boss at her side. Was it everything you hoped for? Too much? Not enough? Drop your final thoughts below. I read every single one. And if this story made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe. More stories coming soon. Thank you for being here. Share your thoughts on this story. I am in the comment section, waiting to hear from you all. Like, subscribe, and visit my channel for more stories like this. Thank you.